Here's the start of the sanding, some body work. Got the little channel all cut out, it's good to go. Controller, a little bit of Bondo work after. To get this all set in, wires will slide in there. Controller will pop in, we'll paint that black or whatever, blue or whatever we're doing for this, might paint it to match the cooler. Get that in there, a little bit of cleaning up on the edges. Started doing the rings. You can see where that channel is. Cut into there, gives it a nice flat surface, nice even rings all the way through. Not trying to match Bondo that way. Still got to do this side yet. You can see how it starts out. After a while you find out what works for yourself and that kind of thing. Got the back all trimmed up, flanned out, turned out good. Nice and tight all the way around. It's going to be cleaned up, a little dusty, but nice and smooth. Came in good. All the cloth soaked through really well. Maybe a little too well on this front edge. Could have maybe backed off a little bit on that. But I just used my oscillating tool, start trimming that up, then hit it with some 50 grit just to get her rough like that. All these little dimples will all be filled in with body filler. So now we're gonna finish up this side, do a quick sand on the rest of the box, see how it works, and skim it with some body filler, and then some primer, some glazing, and on and on and on until she looks beautiful. Yeah, it's almost there, starting to look like something. Other ring is done. For a time, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to take it from rough to the first stage of sanding. Once you get that filler in, there's quite a bit of sanding left yet. Everything in your prep makes a difference when you want a nice smooth finish. If you're spraying it with box liner or something like that, it takes a quarter of the time, hides a lot. I don't like using it. To me it looks kind of cheesy. So we always like finish paint on most stuff. So we'll get some more sanding done yet. Gonna trim out the spot for the controller. Just using a little flush cut in the router. Tiny one. See if we can do this one-handed. Go ahead there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Nice clean cut. Should fit in there good. Ready for some body filler. Quick sand. Knock down all the high spots with the 50 grit. It's not too rough, a little bit yet. So then we're going to use just some standard Bondo, nothing crazy. Mix it up. Use these little spreaders. I usually cut them in half just because they're a little bit nicer for when you come into these round areas instead of having a big thick one. I'll mix it with quite a bit of hardener in it. Sets up a little faster so that it can sand it a little quicker. Usually don't mix too much up at a time. A little bit in there, give her a squirt of hardener. Mix her around, make her good, spread it up, and then do it again. First coat of fillers on. I don't go too thick. Sand's pretty easy. Some people really cover everything. I rather do a couple coats than do that. It's only been about 5 minutes and it's already getting hard. It's a little sticky yet, but won't take much. You gotta work fast even with that little bit. The first time with filming, squirted a little too much, set up fast. Had about 1 scoop left that I didn't get on there. That's why I got a little rough on this edge. Mixed up a little bit more. Filled her in. Gonna get her sanded and then do a couple more coats yet. Get everything filled in nice and clean. before we put some primer on it. First coat of Bondo. Sanded out nice and smooth so far. Filled in all the low areas. Just cleaned it up. Waiting for it to dry so I can do some more touch-ups. Gonna fill in a little bit on these edges. Clean them up so they're nice and crisp. In there. Everything else is looking pretty good. One little ripple in here yet. Gotta clean up. But other than that, it's looking good. Got the majority of the rough first sand done. It's looking pretty smooth. A couple spots yet. But once we put some primer on it, we'll be able to see all the imperfections. There's one spot on the back I noticed when I was sanding, but everything else looking pretty good. So once we put the primer on, we'll be able to touch up everything some more. We're just doing a little bit of a high fill primer. See what happens. Once the primer's on, all the imperfections really come out. You see a couple little spots there. Got a little bit on this ring here. Just a couple holes. It's all gotta be filled. A couple spots on the back. Back's pretty good all the way through there. Got a couple little pinholes on the bottom. You won't see them, but we'll fix it up. Gotta make it right. Same thing here. You can see there's some pinholes. That's all gotta be fixed. Same with along there. So I like to get a coat of primer on, then sand it out, and then touch up everything else. A lot of people like to do their box liner because then you don't have to touch up that kind of stuff. It kind of blends in all the way. But that's not the way we like to have things finished. Have it finished for paint. So we'll have to touch it up. After one coat of glazing, start to do some more sanding on here. Second coat of primer, starting to fill in nice. A couple little spots, probably one more touch up. Then one more coat of primer and be ready for some paint. Sand it up. Starting to get really close here. Starting to look good, nice and smooth, really good. Just cleaned it up. Gonna spray it with another coat of high build primer. Take out a couple more little scratches. See if there's any more touch-ups. Might be a little bit right in here. There's a little bit of a dimple yet. But other than that, it's looking pretty good. All this gets sanded by hand. Try to keep it smooth. Probably the most important part, making it look nice for that final finish. But we'll spray it up one more time and then we'll get going. Bodywork turned out pretty good with that set of primer. Not much odd little thing, but I think it's plenty good enough for the cooler. I don't know if I'll go one more touch up. Everything else is looking pretty clean. Just a couple little specks of dust in here, but it's all going to be sanded with at least 400 to 600 grit here before we paint anyways. Get rid of the rest, but it's looking pretty nice. I think I'm pretty happy with that. And then we'll get some paint on it here tomorrow. Then final assembly and we'll finally test it, see what it sounds like. It's got a coat of paint on there. Kind of a metallic blue. Something I found that it's close to that. It's a little bit nicer, but it's looking pretty good, pretty smooth. Bodywork turned out nice. It's gonna look good on the cooler. Can't complain about that. Then we're gonna mock up, get damp and stuff in there, and just keep going with that. Try and get everything going. Get the controller in and start wiring it up here once it dries in a couple hours. So we're starting to get the wiring going here. Very simple. We just have 2 wires, so they're tied into the harness there now. Power and ground, that'll go to this 24 to 12 volt DC inverter. Orange wire goes to the illumination wire on the controller, and then the controller just plugs into the amp. Not going to be using the RCAs or the USB or anything. just nice, simple. Nothing crazy. We got some Velcro that we'll put on the back of these, stick them into the back of the box. Everything's crimped on, nice and clean. Don't want stuff hanging all over. This pink wire is the antenna wire for the Bluetooth. Might extend it yet. Once we get it in, we'll see where we want to bring it up to the top, trying to get the most reception for the length. But we'll start to set it in there. The power comes from our little clip there, and then it just has the 2 wires inside for power and ground. So we'll hook those up to the converter. So I got most of this stuff in there. Controller's popped in. Just gotta screw down the battery holder. It's a little tight in there. Everything's neat. Just the cable for that is pretty long, so we just tucked it up in the top there. It's all plugged in. Amps in there. Everything fits. But that was the way it was planned. Just gotta hook the speakers up yet. But I'll do that after I mount it to the cooler so we can screw it down. And then use some 2-sided mounting tape for that as well. And then just mount the speakers. Like I said, just using the little TRs. They sound good. It's gonna be fun. So for mounting, we have those couple screws that we put in when we did the mock-up. And then we're also putting on mounting tape all the way through there. It's going to be lots. When I tested it, I just had 2 little pieces on, and I thought I was going to break the fiberglass. Trying to get the little panel back off, so I'm not too worried. If it is, we'll do some bolting or something through it if we have to go through the cooler, but I really want to keep everything separate from each other. I'm just going to set her on the cooler now and get things mounted. Got everything mounted up, speakers in, battery on. Sounds awesome. Matched pretty close to the color of the cooler, just shinier. It's because it's not on plastic. It's not too heavy either. It'll actually stand up pretty good, sit there. Perfect for the dressing room. Going to the beach, whatever you want to do. Little controller on there. There's a Bluetooth, and then the dual batteries. Just got the little one on, kind of testing it. Been playing it for about a half hour, and still going strong.